Hello, welcome to this YouTube channel. In this particular lecture, I will introduce BA English Honours Semester 3 syllabus and reading lists. As you all can see that in your previous semester, the primary focus was vested on the literary texts. So in this particular syllabus also, that means for semester 3, you will get the basic impressions of the texts that are important to be in your syllabus. So ultimately here, as you can see that in semester 3, you will get 3 particular papers that are considered to be the CC papers, and 1 particular paper that has to be considered as the SEC paper ultimately, apart from your GE paper. So now what happens, that in BA English semester 3 syllabus, the first paper that is named as Core Course Theory 5, that is the 5th paper, it is named as American Literature. Why it is considered as American Literature? Because the texts that are in your syllabus, these are taken from the American History of English Literature, or American texts these are. So that's why in this particular section, you can also find the writers that have been, or the poets, or maybe the short story writers, or maybe the addressee who have been taken from the American literature part, obviously. As the previous semesters, you will find that the questions are divided into 2 major sections. The first is considered to be as objective questions, okay, and the second one is to some extent considered as the subjective questions. So far as the objective questions are concerned, you will find that these are coming from the detailed texts, as you have already faced in your previous semesters. And then the broader questions are coming from the non-detailed texts, okay. That means there was no particular reference to word by word or line by line interpretation like that. So from the detailed text sections, as you can see here, you will find that there are 2 and 5 marks questions, okay, and these are coming from these texts. So what are the texts? Let us consider them. The first one is Edgar Allan Poe's The Purloined Letter. So you can find that here the first reference of the detective story that have been taken by Edgar Allan Poe, where you can find that Dupin, the major character, is being introduced here as the precursors of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, or maybe Agatha Christie. So ultimately, what I'm trying to refer here, the Purloined Letter by Edgar Allan Poe is an example of detective short story, and ultimately you have to read them. The second one, as you can see here, it is William Faulkner's Dry September. Now it is a particular kind of, as you can identify, this is a short. It is not a short story. It is a poem. Okay. No, Dry September is short story, obviously. So here you can find a particular reference is being made regarding the particular kind of epidermalization. That means the differentiation between the white skin and black skin, and ultimately the clash that was going on between these two. Okay, that means the southern part of America, and you can find there is a kind of a clash between the two groups, and these have been taken in consideration here. Next, the 3 or 4 poems. That means the first one is Anne Bradstreet, the prologue. The second one is Walt Whitman's Passage to India. That have been. It is a long poem, and as you can see here, in this particular poem, there are the first 68 lines have been considered as for your textbook at a section of the text, and ultimately you will find it have been published under the group of Leaves of Grass. The next, number 5, it is Adrian Rich's Power. Okay, so you can find that in Power, fundamentally the focus is being given to the explorations, or maybe the inventions of Madame Curie. So ultimately, whether it is Power, or whether it is Passage to India, or maybe Dry September, each and every text, you will find that these are actually focusing on some perspectives of some cultural criticism, whether it is feminism, whether it is epidermalization or colonial perspectives are there. Okay, or maybe it can be considered as some provincial perspectives being in work. All these things are there. The next poem, it is taken from the Beat Poets, edited by Carmela Siriu, and you can find that the name of the text is An Eastern Ballad by Allen Ginsberg. And you can find that the basic temperament of beat poetry, where the social criticism is being made, is being described in An Eastern Ballad. So ultimately, what I'm trying to point out here that under these 6 texts that you can trace as detailed texts, and there are more too, it will be the 2 addresses. You will find that the first 2, that is the Purloined Letter and Dry September, these are short stories. The first one is an example of detective story. The second one is referred as the story of provincial politics, where the prologue, Passage to India, Power, and An Eastern Ballad, these are 4 poems where the focus of these poems are completely different from each other. The temperaments are different, okay? And you can find that these are actually portraying some significant orientations to the patterns of literature that have been introduced by America. As you can see here that number 7, it is Abraham Lincoln's The Gettysburg Address. Okay, the famous 2 texts are there. The first one is Gettysburg Address. It was by Abraham Lincoln. And the second one is I Have a Dream, and it was by Martin Luther King. So both these texts have been associated with the American War of Independence, where you can find the white versus black, and ultimately the differentiation, exploitation, subjugation, these kinds of things have been discussed in detail. So whether it is Gettysburg Address, it is also being associated with the particular representations of the zeal for independence. And the second one, that is I Have a Dream, here you can find that the differentiations on the basis of color or epidermis have been taken into consideration here. Both are very important so far as American history is concerned, and ultimately these are, it dates back to many years. That means when Abraham Lincoln speaks Gettysburg Address and when Martin Luther King speaks I Have a Dream, there is a big gap of time, but ultimately they are relevant and very significant so far as American history is concerned. So what happens to know that all these texts, that means the detailed text, the previous one, as I mentioned, the short stories, and ultimately you can find there are the poems, and at the same time the 2 addresses, that is Gettysburg Address and I Have a Dream. These are very important for you, and ultimately I will obviously suggest you to read a particular book. It was published by from Worldview, right? And there you can get the basic implications and impressions of the major texts. And I will mention the name of the book here in the description box of this particular video. So ultimately, you will find that under the Worldview edition, there was the book on American literature, and there you can get all the texts, or most of the texts have been taken for consideration here. Now, so far as the 2 non-detailed texts are concerned, as you can see here, it is the Tennessee Williams, the Glass Menagerie, a very famous text. As you can find, it is a symbolic and a text that is focusing on the different aspects of a social class, and at the same time how the menagerie has been taken for consideration as something symbolic representing a particular woman. Okay, I will not come to that in detail here, but when it will be discussed in detail when I will take this particular text in consideration. So for Tennessee Williams's Glass Menagerie, you can opt for any particular book that have been available. As you can see that it cannot be possible for you to get the notes and text at the same time. So if you have to opt for the text, then you can bring the books from any edition, that means that is available from Amazon, or maybe that is available in your market. For Toni Morrison's Beloved, it is also a significant book. because it is actually focusing on, it's something eerie, some grotesque elements are also there, but at the same time you can find that the text is actually focusing on the societal perspectives and differentiations, and there are ample references of the white versus black problem. But at the same time it is grotesque. It's some eerie feelings have been described here in Beloved, as the character Beloved, as you can see here, she's coming from the other world probably. Okay, so in the same time, what I'm trying to suggest, that so far as the Glass Menagerie and the Beloved is concerned, it is Toni Morrison's writing Beloved, as you can see. So some black orientations are always being in work. So ultimately what I'm trying to suggest here, if you have to go with the text, then you have to buy the text. And if you want some notes, it is not available in detail, but ultimately for Beloved, there is a particular notebook is available in Amazon, not in the market, that you can buy. Okay, so do with them, and I think that the American literature, it will not be very problematic for you, I think, because as I will certainly cover all the sections of the syllabus with the video lectures in this particular form. So it is a CC-5, that is the fifth paper, and it names as the American literature. So let us think about the second one, that is the syllabus for CC-6, that is named as popular literature. As you can see that the popular literature, this particular text or this particular term, it actually indicates the literature that is popular or that are popular among the people or among the literates. So ultimately what I'm trying to suggest here, that so far as the term popular is implicated, you can find that it is actually focusing on the basic trend, that is the present trend that is working. The first text, that is Sam Salvadori's Funny Boy. As you can see that in the present scenario, there is the LGBT movement. Okay, that is lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered. So the gender studies and new gender-oriented problematizations, and where the heteronormativity has become the norm. As you can see, it is not the heterosexuality, rather heteronormativity. So from that particular point of view, I should say here that Funny Boy is a very good and interesting text for you. Okay, because it addresses and focuses on the typical quote unquote heteronormativity, and how a particular person who actually feels different, whose orientation is different, how he or she has been treated by the society itself, right? And as you can see that the Funny Boy, it falls under the group of the detailed texts. So ultimately it's a novel, and you have to go through all the chapters of the novel in detail. Why? Because the 2 marks question and 5 marks question will come from this particular section. So that's why you must read the text, that is Funny Boy by Sam Salvadori, in detail, right? The second text, it is a graphic novel. Okay, you know what is graphic novel? Just like a comic book. Okay, because there are some graphical designs have been there. It is not comics, but this is a graphic novel. And you can find that how Durgabai Vyam and Suvas Vyam is describing the experiences of untouchability in the work Vimayana. It's a very good text and very significant and relevant in the present scenario, where you can find that the Dalit, this particular term, is being at the coinage, is at the focus. Why? Because of the exploitation. Different kinds of exploitation, different kinds of subjugations are always present within this society. And ultimately in today's not only literature but also in newspapers, you can find there are ample references where such kind of exploitations are very common. So Vimayana, actually it is focusing on the life of Bhimrao Ambedkar, and in this particular text, in the graphic form, how all the experiences, the bitter experiences that have been experienced by Bhimrao Ambedkar and shared by Bhimrao Ambedkar, these have been taken in consideration in Vimayana. So it is also a kind of a detailed text, as you can see. So the 2 marks and 5 marks question will come from this particular section. So what I'm suggesting you to just buy the books, that is Funny Boy and Vimayana. Okay, and you cannot get the ample provisions of different editions of text. There are single edition. So ultimately buy the texts and go through it in detail. Okay, it will be very helpful for you, and it will obviously be very interesting for you, obviously. So these are the 2 texts that are considered as the detailed texts here. Now, so far as the non-detailed texts are concerned, you will find that the first one is, as you can see, it is an example of the popular literature. So the first one is Through the Looking Glass. As you can see, it is the second work by Lewis Carroll that have been considered for the, it is in continuation with the Alice series. As you can see, the first series is Alice in the Wonderland, and here you can get Through the Looking Glass. The same kind of orientations have been there. One thing I should say here that for Alice in Wonderland, there is a significant movie, and you can find there are ample link or ample say symmetry between these two. That means the movie and the text. But you can get that Through the Looking Glass is also present as a Hollywood movie. But I warn you that don't go through the movie and consider that I have gone through the Looking Glass, because there is a vast difference between Through the Looking Glass, the novel, and Through the Looking Glass, the movie, right? So for non-detailed section, you must buy Through the Looking Glass from Amazon, or maybe from any site, or maybe from the market, and the text will obviously help you to answer in detail. So Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, and the second one, it is a very interesting kind of detective fiction that have been introduced here. In the previous one, there is Dupin in the Parliament Letter, and here you can get the Agatha Christie has been introduced. Okay, so there you can find Hercule Poirot, the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Okay, so these are the two texts. And as you can see, Through the Looking Glass, there is a kind of children literature, though at the same time we know that children literature are not made for only children. But ultimately, Through the Looking Glass and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd and Funny Boy and Vimayana, four different texts, they are the signature texts that have been considered as representing a particular genre, representing a particular group of literature. So these have to be these have to be taken in detail, these have to be dealt in detail, and I hope if you go through the text, then you will get such kind of confidence that will help you to write your answer properly. Please stay attached. In my next lecture or next discussion, I will take CCT7, that is the British literature, and the SEC part, that is SEC1. Okay, so stay attached. Thank you.